RotoExperts.com and DailyRoto.com, your home for fantasy NASCAR. Check out Dan Dobish's preview right now for DFS and seasonal purposes for the Coke Zero 400 right now. And also this weekend, you'll see Dan and our next guest, Scott Engel, on DailyRoto.com, talking about night racing Saturday night this week at Daytona. And Sean, good morning. And Daytona, when we're playing on DraftKings, it can always be very dicey. You may yell at the screen during live scoring because restrictor plate racing, as we know, can be very finicky and very frustrating. You never know who's going to wreck.
That is very true. Daytona is the type of racetrack where anybody and anybody can just win. I mean, you always got to watch out for the big one, and you always got to be ready in case you could go from 0 all the way to 0 at DraftKings.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, you can be in the money 1 minute, and you can be at 0 next, just like you said. Tony Stewart, though, last week with the monumental, historic victory. He's only 8,300 on DraftKings, and he's won four times at Daytona. We saw how well he did on a road course last week. He's also been really good at plate tracks throughout his career. Do we have to lock Tony Stewart into our DraftKings lineups this week?
Well, again, let's also mention it again. He has 4 wins, momentum from last week's win, but I'll also throw in that he's ran 51% of his laps in the top 15. You combine these stats with the momentum from last week's win, I think Stewart actually is a nice pick to start this week, and his value is in just the right spot where I would definitely consider using him.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. is at 10,600. And that's pretty much because of his restrictor plate prowess. And he's run pretty well overall this season. Do we have to lock Dale Earnhardt Jr. in? Maybe we build lineups around Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Tony Stewart this week.
Well, Jr. has 10 wins on restrictor plate tracks, which is the most out of anybody in the Sprint Cup Series right now. He also has an average length position of 13th, which is second best in the Sprint Cup Series. I mean, Junior may have the highest salary this week, but his stats really showcase why that is. He's near the top of the board in most loop data statistics, and it's all just too good to ignore. He's a must-start this week.
This season, Denny Hamlin became the first Toyota driver to ever win the Daytona 500, and he's under 10,000 on DraftKings this week.
Yep, that is very true, and I do highly recommend starting him. And the reason why? He has an average finishing position of about third in the last 3 Daytona races. And Hamlin has just become one of the best drivers to start when it comes to plate tracks. And his stats just really showcase why. I would definitely start him this week.
Now, Kevin Harvick's 10,300. We mentioned how expensive Junior is. Harvick is always a contender at the plate tracks. But if I had to pick between Harvick and Junior, which way am I going?
Ooh, that is a pretty tough one because Harvick is also a pretty good pick. He's a 2-time Daytona winner with an average finish of about third in the last 3 Daytona races. I mean, Hamlin's average finish has been a little bit better the last 3 races, but Harvick is about second best when it comes to that. I mean, either pick, you can't go wrong, but if you have to choose one, I would go with Junior this time.
Yeah, Junior, a restrictor plate demon. I know if he's going to win anywhere, it'd probably be a plate track. Matt Kenseth has always really performed well at these restrictor plate track, too. And it seems like he's a tremendous discount at 8,600, even though he's had no recent momentum, Sean.
Yeah, while that may be true, he does have an average finish of 17th at Daytona and only 89 fastest laps ran, where a lot of the other drivers on the circuit have actually gotten more in that stat than he does. His salary may be a bit lower this week compared to, like, say, his Joe Gibbs Racing teammates, but don't let that fool you. Kenseth is a little bit more inconsistent compared to, say, Hamlin, for example. And as such, I would avoid him, actually, unless his practice speeds and start position look extremely favorable.
If we go down the list of some of these midpoint drivers, Two guys that stand out are Casey Kane at 8,400 and our friend Austin Dillon at 7,900. Austin actually had the pole earlier this year at Daytona. Actually, it was a year ago, yeah.
Yep. And I might as well go through both drivers then right now. So Casey Kane, he has about an average finish of 20th and an average running position of 16th at Daytona. These stats aren't too bad compared to drivers around or below his salary. But I still think, though, you could pick someone like Tony Stewart or Kyle Larson or Jamie McMurray, who are all cheaper than Kane and more likely to have a better finish than Kane this week. So Kane's not bad, but you could do better than him. Yeah. And even Austin Dillon has better stats than Casey Kane at Daytona with an average finish of about 12th and 4 top 10s and 6 starts. There's one type of track that Dillon does best right now. It's the plate tracks. And his salary makes him a really great sleeper pick this week. I definitely would start him.
You know, I can't believe that I'm talking about using certain people, like reserving certain people over Tony Stewart. You know, I've been continually bashing Tony Stewart during this segment for the last 2 years. Now all of a sudden we're recommending him. What's going on here, Sean?
Well, the NASCAR season is what's going on here, and it's been taking an unpredictable turn. That's what I can say about this one.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be recommending Tony Stewart. What about another mid-range, two other mid-range values? You got Ryan Newman at 7,600 and Paul Menard at 7,400.
Well, Ryan Newman, he has 7 top 10s and 101 laps led. Newman's stats for his salary range are pretty decent. I don't like him as much as, say, Austin Dillon, but I still think he's a solid choice for those looking to spend a little bit less for their lineup.
Now,
Paul Menard,
yeah,
he has an average running position of 20th and 1,193 laps in the top 15. His other stats, though, have shown that this is not really one of his top tracks, and despite his cheap salary, I don't think he's really worth playing this week.
All right. Someone else who's certainly worth using. If there's one place she's really shown a lot of potential, it's restrictor plate tracks. Danica Patrick's only 6,300 on DraftKings this week.
Very true, and I think she is one of the better options for a real bargain pick with 2 top 15 finishes and an average finish of 25th. And she's been showing signs of improving at Daytona and has the potential to be a real possible bargain sleeper pick. This is one of the best weeks to use her, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you can also try front-loading with David Reagan, who's only 5,900. As you spoke about at the top of the segment, you said sometimes anybody can win at Daytona. We've seen Trevor Bayne win at Daytona. He won the 500 a few years ago. And David Reagan's also won the Daytona 500.
Actually, it was not the Daytona 500, but it was this exact race coming up years ago.
Right, the Coke Zero
he
400,
won
yes.
that in the past. And he also has 3 consecutive top 25 finishes in the July Daytona races. Reagan is one of the best picks for a driver around this price range. As you can know, he is a guy that's likely to finish the race, and that's what a good fantasy lineup needs. So I recommend starting him.
Let's go back up the ladder right now. Martin Truex Jr.'s 9,500. He doesn't have a good history at plate tracks, but he's got a lot of momentum.
Yeah, that's very true. He was the runner-up in the Daytona 500 earlier this year, and he also has an average finish of about 16th in the last 3 Daytona races, which is not too bad. He's been running well on most types of tracks all season long, to the point that I think he's actually worth trying to play this week. But, you know, maybe not everybody's going to like him, though. So I would consider him a tournament play and watch his speeds in practice and his qualifying position.
Yeah, you have to do that with all the drivers. We give you a good layout of what to expect overall. But, of course, like we always say, make sure you watch qualifying, and especially like practices. That showing that happy hour practice session right before the race is so important. Why is it so important?
It's so important because at that point, most of the drivers already have their car set, and usually they're looking to see if they need to make any more changes. And considering it's the practice session closest to the actual race, it makes a bit more of an impact where drivers are less likely to change their cars. Henceforth, you already have a type of race that you might have a bit of an indication who's going to already do well.
What about Jimmy Johnson at 10,100? Is he not somebody we spend up for because we want to use that money for Junior or Harvick?
I mean, Johnson has shown that he can win on the plate tracks. He's won at Daytona before, but it's kind of hard to recommend him when Junior and Harvick both have shown that they are some of the best at this track. I mean, that's the case with a few other drivers that we mentioned before, like Casey Kane, for example. Decent stats, but better drivers that you can get around his range.
What about the Busch brothers this week?
Yeah, well, Kyle Busch, 69% of laps ran in the top 15, but he has 5 DNFs. So Kyle Busch is the type of driver that can either do really well for your lineup or really wreck because he has a history of wrecking at this track. So, again, check his starting position before using him. His brother Kurt, on the other hand, though, at 9,100, he has 16 top 10s and 30 starts and only 1 DNF.
All right,
the closest thing
Sean, we got to go now, but thanks a lot. For more information, you want to ask him questions, it's at SeanMan247.